Welcome, thrifty viewers, to the Elite Economizer. Today we're delving into a topic that's both intriguing and unsettling. In 1972, researchers at MIT presented a report, The Limits to Growth, predicting societal collapse by 2040. And according to a follow-up study by analysts at KPMG, we might be ahead of that grim schedule. Consider this. Advanced human civilizations have existed for around 10,000 years, yet many great empires have risen and fallen, leaving little more than relics and crumbling structures. Historians attribute these collapses to four major categories: political, social, and cultural, environmental, and our main concern today, economic issues. Imagine the civilization you know now. The internet at your fingertips, climate control, worldwide travel, affordable clothing, medicine, instant communication, and bountiful, safe food and water. It's an unprecedented era of abundance. And have you ever wondered who the richest person in history is? It might surprise you, but it's been Elon Musk and others like Rockefeller or Rothschilds, even Mansa Musa. But here's the twist. They were wealthy in their time, but their time was an age of near universal poverty. They couldn't fathom the modern conveniences we take for granted. Before we dive into the MIT study, it's important to understand that our modern civilization is incomparably more advanced and wealthy than any historical empire. You're part of an era that boasts unimaginable luxuries. So, if given the choice between your modern two-bedroom apartment and a 15th century French palace sans air conditioning, plumbing, and safe food, what would you choose? The apartment, right? We thought so. But we haven't even touched on the topic of war. Despite what you see on the news or social media, we're living through one of the most peaceful periods in human history thanks to technology, education, and global cooperation. So, what's the problem, you ask? Well, think of it this way. Our modern global economy is like a jet engine compared to a donkey. The jet engine is faster and more powerful, but also less resilient. One tiny flaw in its complex network of interdependent components could bring it down. And it moves so fast and flies so high that even the smallest hiccup becomes catastrophic. Now think about this. Most of us today wouldn't last long without readily available food delivered to our door and the comforts we enjoy. But let's not dwell on the doomsday scenario just yet. Let's break down the MIT study, The Limits to Growth. This study aimed to explore the sustainability of our resource consumption. Spoiler alert, it wasn't sustainable. The study was groundbreaking in its time as it was one of the first to use computers with dynamic systematic models to understand complex real-life systems. World 3, the computer model developed, simulated everything from population growth to industrial capacity and their intricate interactions. This led to the realization that changes in one area invariably affect others. It's like a chain reaction, like the feedback loop in a microphone and speaker setup. For instance, declining birth rates can result in an aging population, which then pressures younger workers to care for the elderly, reducing the possibility of starting their families. This relates to one of the primary concerns in the MIT study. Despite considering numerous variables in the study's computer-generated model, the researchers primarily tracked 5: population, industrial output, food production, available resources, and pollution. Notably, this study was published in 1972, before climate change gained the attention it deserves today. These factors are crucial to modern living, but their interconnected nature can lead to feedback loops and unexpected consequences. Take, for example, declining birth rates and their impact on societal dynamics. The researchers explored different scenarios, tweaking various variables to predict possible outcomes. These ranged from assuming constant technological progress to compounding innovation, with each scenario impacting our future differently. Our world has experienced exponential growth in the past century. Innovation has driven immense progress, but it's crucial to recognize that we're approaching the limits of what's feasible. Factors like Moore's law show that we can't continue at this pace indefinitely. Technological innovation isn't always about major breakthroughs. It's often about finding new ways to consume content and time. So, what's the worst-case scenario presented in the MIT study? The business-as-usual tool model paints a grim picture of exponential pollution, resource depletion, and food shortages. This cascade of events leads to declining birth rates, economic instability, and widespread famines. While we enjoy modern conveniences, it's essential to acknowledge the potential challenges ahead. However, remember, these are models and predictions, not certainties. Now let's explore the critical question. Is the fact that this report is ahead of schedule actually something to be worried about, or is it merely a case of too much weight being given to statistical correlations? The MIT study, titled "The Limits to Growth," was primarily aimed at examining the sustainability of our current resource consumption. It was a pioneering effort in its time, employing dynamic systematic models, a computerized approach that could replicate real-world complexities using the software. System dynamics, for those who might not be familiar, is a software framework that strives to mimic the intricate workings of complex, real-life systems. In simple terms, it attempts to simulate how everything interacts within a complex web of interconnected factors. Back when this study was conducted in the 1960s and 1970s, the computing technology looked nothing like what we have today. Those machines had processing power comparable to today's household appliances. Nevertheless, the MIT team persevered, ultimately creating World 3, a computer model designed to simulate the global economy. World 3 was nothing short of ambitious. It considered an array of variables encompassing population growth, industrial capacity, and, crucially, how these variables would interplay. For instance, a larger population naturally demands more resources, but it also tends to drive innovation. With 8 billion people today, we have a far better chance of discovering a Tesla, a Da Vinci, a Haber, a Bosch, or a Whittle compared to the world's 2 billion population just a century ago. It's often joked among macroeconomists that any change made to the economy sets off a chain reaction, impacting at least 3 other aspects. Often we bypass this complexity by assuming ceteris paribus, or all other things being equal, in our models. It's a handy approach when studying cause and effect in isolation, like how a soda tax affects the demand for sugary beverages, all other factors remaining constant. However, in the real world, nothing remains constant simply because it's easier to model that way. Predicting the future is a formidable challenge, particularly when you can't account for nearly every variable. But that's precisely what World 3 set out to achieve. World 3 featured systems for modeling diverse aspects, from birth rates to farming technology. The premise was that these variables were crucial for maintaining the modern lifestyle we enjoy today. Since they are interconnected, they often set off feedback loops. A feedback loop is a concept borrowed from music performances. If you've ever held a microphone up to a loudspeaker, you're familiar with the ear-piercing noise that results. It occurs because the microphone hears a loud sound and relays it to the speaker, which amplifies and plays the noise even louder, starting the cycle all over again. Feedback loops can also occur in economies. For instance, declining birth rates lead to an aging population, putting more financial pressure on younger workers to care for the elderly, either directly or through taxation to fund pension schemes and aged care. This in turn reduces the likelihood of younger workers starting families of their own, leading to even further declining birth rates. This example is essential in the context of the MIT study. While the researchers considered hundreds of variables within their computer-generated model of the global economy, they were primarily focused on tracking just 5 key ones: population, industrial output, food production, available resources, and pollution. It's worth noting that this study was published in 1972, long before climate change gained the widespread recognition it has today. These individual factors are critical to modern life. However, the essence of the study lies in how they interact with each other. Let's return to our economist's safe space, the assumption of all other things being equal regarding food and population. These variables are intrinsically dependent, with one's movement influencing the other, all other things being equal. Now let's ponder 2 scenarios. One where a declining population leads to a drop in food production, and another where reduced food production triggers population decline. These scenarios present vastly different outcomes. With these interactions in mind, The researchers ran numerous simulations, tweaking various variables to predict possible outcomes. Some simulations assumed constant technological progress, while others envisioned technology compounding, offering solutions like resource harvesting from space or lab-grown food. Yet other simulations foresaw technological progress plateauing, an idea that may seem unrealistic to us today, but becomes conceivable when we consider the physical limits of certain technologies. For instance, the concept of a technological plateau might sound unrealistic today. After all, we've experienced a constant wave of innovation. For the last 5 decades, computing power has doubled roughly every 2 years thanks to Moore's law. However, we're approaching the physical limits of how many transistors we can pack onto a microchip. Technologies like quantum computing might resolve this issue, but it's a reminder that not all innovation leads to radical advancements. In today's world, many technological advancements are geared towards finding innovative ways for us to consume content and time while serving the interests of advertisers. Yes, I realize the irony in acknowledging this while delivering content with advertising, but there you have it, an ad. Beyond technological assumptions, the researchers examined scenarios with lower birth rates, higher birth rates, increased recycling, more resource discoveries, greater global trade, and reduced levels of global trade. They strive to account for realistic combinations of factors. The complexity of these interactions challenged the all other things being equal assumption. The researchers then averaged the trajectories of 5 crucial factors to gauge humanity's likely destination. While the different scenarios produced a wide range of results, they all shared a common theme, a significant decline around the year 2040. However, it's important to recognize that predicting the future is a formidable task. Nonetheless, these potential outcomes served as the basis for the study's conclusions. The comprehensive technology scenario presented an optimistic outlook. In this model, we continued to live much as we do today, but technology advanced rapidly enough to keep up with the demands of our growing population. Food production did experience a significant decline due to water pollution and misused arable land, but technological innovations address these issues. The population eventually plateaued around 2040, primarily due to wealthier urban populations having fewer children. This is a result of economic development rather than widespread famine. In this scenario, industrial output peaked and declined, but this didn't lead to a decline in living standards. In fact, the efficient use of goods offset the industrial output decline. The sharing economy, where one car can serve multiple households, is a prime example of such efficiency. Consider the possibility of a future where self-driving cars reduce the need for individual vehicle ownership. This might lead to a reduction in industrial output, but it would be a boon for shared resources. As the saying goes, you will own nothing and be happy about it. This entails more efficient resource usage, reduced pollution, and sustainable raw materials. It wouldn't represent exponential growth in living standards, but it's far from societal collapse. Now, you might wonder if relying on future technological innovation to save us is too optimistic. Some critics of the study argue that it has a pessimistic view of human innovation. While our current innovation rate might not be sufficient to avoid a collapse, necessity is often the mother of invention. When our backs are against the wall, the world's attention may shift towards researching and investing in technologies that could steer us away from the doomsday scenario depicted in the business-as-usual model. In fact, we can already witness this shift in action with the surge in renewable energy technologies entering the market. There are still gaps in our resource management and waste handling, but we've made significant strides in the past decade. While it's tempting to be optimistic about the future, the weight of evidence from research conducted by 17 esteemed economists and scientists suggests that a business-as-usual 2 scenario best represents our current reality, as affirmed by a follow-up study in 2021. Unfortunately, this scenario predicts a stark societal collapse. Think back to what I mentioned at the beginning of this video. I'd choose to be a modern middle-class worker over a king from 150 years ago. If the business-as-usual scenario materializes, I'd prefer to be a middle-class worker today than a king just 20 years in the future. It's a genuinely unsettling thought. So if you find yourself feeling anxious about the future, as I did while reading this study, it's crucial to consider both sides. This report could be an overblown warning that teaches us about the limits of systematic modeling to predict the future. On the other hand, it might be a sobering wake-up call. Naturally, a study predicting the end of the world attracts skeptics and cynics. Some criticisms have been proven wrong, as the data aligns closely with the business-as-usual model's predictions. Others argue that the study underestimates human innovation. While our current pace might not suffice, necessity has a way of driving invention. When pushed to the brink, humanity tends to concentrate on developing technologies that could lead us away from the bleak scenario depicted in the study. As for my perspective on what's to come, I encourage you to read both of these reports yourself. While I typically aim to be optimistic about the future, I understand that my opinion doesn't carry the weight of research conducted by renowned economists and scientists, research that has been validated by another capable individual. In the best-case scenario, the study is an exaggeration, serving as a lesson in the limitations of predictive modeling. In the worst-case scenario, it's a call to action, prompting us to learn survival skills like foraging for food in the wilderness, a task you can begin right now by exploring classes on Skillshare. As we discuss this MIT study, it's vital to address criticisms and maintain a balanced perspective. We all want a bright future, and the study's predictions, while unsettling, are not set in stone. Human innovation can surge when the necessity arises. We're already seeing positive changes in renewable technologies and resource management. In conclusion, the MIT study's predictions are alarming, but not definitive. Our future is uncertain, but it's also shaped by our choices. While it's crucial to consider these warnings, we should focus on innovation, sustainability, and cooperation to ensure a better world for future generations. Thank you for joining us on The Elite Economizer. If you found this video informative, please give it a like and subscribe for more content. We value your thoughts, so feel free to share your opinions in the comments section below. Remember, financial wisdom is your key to a brighter future.